All right, circles and circumference. You all know what a circle is. I'm not going to give you that vocabulary word. So the cool thing about circles is that the entire the circumference of the circle, the entire outer area, that's the circumference, is the same distance from the center of that circle. A few vocab words you need to know. From the center out to the end, to the outer area of the outer circle, is the same distance at every single point. It doesn't matter where you go on that circle, it's all going to be the same. That is called the radius. The diameter goes from one side through the center to the other, and must go through the center, from one side through the center to the other, and it can be any direction. It doesn't matter as long as it goes from one side through the center and to the other side. That is called your diameter. So the diameter of a circle is twice the radius. We are going to write that. Here's your formula right here. I will write it a little bit larger so that you can see it. Diameter equals 2 times your radius. Diameter equals 2r. And your radius is half of your diameter. So radius equals diameter divided by 2, or radius equals 1/2 times your diameter. You really don't need to memorize all of those formulas. They are all the same thing, because if I divide by 2 right here, I'm going to end up with this formula here. Diameter equals 2r is what you really need to know. Your diameter is twice your radius is half of your diameter. Alright, so we can find, if I have the diameter, I can find the radius of the circle. The diameter of this one is 20 feet. The radius is half of that, so your radius is going to be 10 feet. 20 divided by 2 is 10. The radius of the circle is 7 meters. So I know that the diameter is twice that, and 7 times 2 is 14 meters, is what the diameter of that circle is. Alright, the distance around the circle is called the circumference. If we had a square or a rectangle, we would be calling that perimeter. In a circle, we call it circumference. And the cool thing about it is there's a really cool ratio in circles. So the circumference divided by the diameter is the same for every single circle. It doesn't matter if your circle is tiny or huge. Your circumference divided by the diameter is always going to be exactly the same. It is going to be what we call pi. And it can be written as 3.14 or 22/7. Pi is actually a number that never ends. It doesn't repeat, goes on forever and never repeats. So we are actually estimating when we write it as 3.14, but it is an estimation that gets us close enough to what the circumference or diameter, whatever we're trying to find, gets us close enough to it. So we have a formula for the circumference of the circle. It is right here. If you can't read that, if it's too small on your screen, I will write it for you. It is circumference equals pi times the diameter. And since you know that your diameter is twice your radius, if you only have your radius, you can solve for that too, because you would actually write it as circumference equals pi times twice your radius. Alright, so we're going to find the circumference of this flying disc, and we are going to use 3.14 for pi. There's actually a pi button on your calculator, but sometimes it'll say use 3.14, and if you don't use that, you'll have the wrong answer. Sometimes it'll say use the ratio of 22/7. It will tell you which one you need to use. Just make sure you're using the one that it says to in the directions. I'm going to pull out my calculator here. All right. So, just to review really quick, the formula of circumference is circumference equals pi times the diameter. Circumference equals pi times the diameter. I only have the radius here, but I know that the diameter is twice the radius, so I can say 5 times 2, or radius times 2 equals my diameter. So 5 times 2 equals my diameter, which is 10. I'm going to plug my diameter into this equation, and it is circumference equals 10 times pi, and we are using 3.14 for pi, so circumference is 10 times 3.14, and I know that 10 times 3.14 is going to be 31.4, so our circumference is going to equal 31.4. Gotta label it because you've got to give it meaning. 31.4 inches is what your circumference is for that flying disc. All right, we're going to find the circumference of this watch, and we are going to use 22/7 as our pi. Okay, it gives us the diameter of the watch is 28 millimeters. So circumference equals pi times your diameter. Our diameter is 28. We're using 22/7 for pi times 28/1, right? 22 times 28 equals 616. So circumference equals 616. 7 times 1 equals 7. And we are going to divide by 7. And our circumference equals 88. Gotta label it because gotta give it meaning. So 88 millimeters is what the circumference of that watch is, the watch face. All right, this one we are estimating. So it says that the circumference of this tape is 31.4 inches, and it wants us to estimate the diameter. I know that circumference equals pi times the diameter. So if I have 31.4 equals, if I estimate pi as 3.14 and then have my diameter, when I divide here, I know that my diameter is going to equal 10. So I know that the diameter of that tape is 10 inches. All right, semicircles are really, really cool. It is half of a circle. So to find the perimeter of a semicircle or the circumference of a semicircle, we really should call it perimeter because this is half a circumference and then we have this length here. So this straight edge right here is actually your diameter. It goes from one end of your circle to the other and it goes through the center, so that's your diameter. So that is 6 meters long. And then we've got to find the distance around the curved part, and that is going to be half of your circumference. So circumference equals pi times the diameter, and I know that my diameter is 6, so it's 6 times pi. So let me grab my calculator here. 6 times 3.14, we're going to estimate it at 3.14, is 18.84. That's what my circumference equals. But I only need half of that because this is only half of my circle. So I am going to divide by 2. So we divide by 2 and I get 9.42. This, what I have here, 9.42, is this distance from here to there. I haven't taken into account that other 6 because when I do perimeter I have to do the entire outside line. So I'm going to add 6 to that and I am going to get my perimeter as 15.42 meters. So be sure when you are doing semicircles that you take into account that you have to do half of the circumference.